Hello and welcome to this quick tutorial. This video is intended to support my pattern for ripple placemats. Available on my website, loveapplecrafts.com. It will be free for a short time, a week or so, and then it will revert to a paid pattern. So grab it now for free if you're interested. I'm not going to go through the whole pattern, just a few areas where I think you might get hung up, as follows. Switching from Tunisian to regular crochet, which you will do twice at the beginning of the ripples sections. Working an invisible join to a single crochet, working the first single crochet, working the long double crochet, working the first long double crochet, working between the two legs of a single crochet, working an invisible join into the first long double crochet, and switching back to Tunisian crochet from the ripple sections, which fortunately you'll only have to do once. So the first 6 rounds of this pattern are worked exactly the same as my pattern for honeycomb placemats, and I've linked the video tutorial for how to start that pattern in the description. Round 7 marks the beginning of the regular crochet ripples section. Make sure you end the honeycomb section by working the return pass until you have 2 stitches remaining on the hook. Cut the return pass yarn and pull it through, and switch to your regular crochet hook, and simply work a single crochet into each Tunisian stitch around, by inserting the hook as you normally would from right to left into each Tunisian vertical bar and working a single crochet. When you get all the way around to the end, the last few Tunisian stitches to work tend to become tight and shortened to the point that you often can't even see them. I deal with this by pulling up on the return pass yarn tail that you cut at the beginning of the round, and the last few Tunisian stitches that you need to work should pop up. Work a single crochet into those, and at this point in the pattern you will end there and work an invisible join to the first single crochet of the round. But in round 24, to start the second ripples section, I do ask you to pick up an extra stitch in order to have the specific number of stitches that I want you to have for the remainder of the pattern. You can pick up an extra stitch any number of ways, but I generally just work an extra single crochet into this vertical bar here, which is located right before the first single crochet of the round. Once you've done that, work an invisible join to the first single crochet of the round as follows. Remove the hook from the working loop and pull it up big just so that it doesn't unravel. Place the hook over top of the working yarn, not under, and insert the hook into the stitch from back to front, so backwards compared to the way you would normally do it. Place the working loop back on the hook and pull it through from front to back. This now allows us to build up the first stitch of the next round without having to work a conspicuous and visually unappealing starting chain. So to start round 8, we work what I call the first single crochet, or FSC, which is just a single crochet built up in place without a chain. So it's worked into the same stitch that we joined to, by inserting the hook into that stitch, pulling up a loop, and just working a single crochet in the usual way. Very simple. Next, we're going to skip the next single crochet as stated in the pattern and work a long double crochet into the next single crochet. This is just a double crochet in which the first loop is pulled up extra long. For this pattern, I recommend pulling it up to around 1.2 centimeters approximately, just a bit longer than usual. So back to our project. Yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch and pull up a loop and just pull it up a bit longer than usual, then yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2 as you normally would to complete a double crochet. The last 2 steps are worked exactly the same as for a normal double crochet. For this part of the pattern, we are going to work, again, as the pattern states, another 6 long double crochets into that same stitch to create a 7 long double crochet fan. Some of the fans of the pattern consist of 9 long double crochets, but they're all worked the same way. At the end of this first long double crochet round, you finish by working another invisible join. And this is done the same way as before. Remove the hook, pull the loop up big so it doesn't unravel, place the hook over top of the working yarn and into the first single crochet from back to front, put the loop back on the hook and pull it through from front to back. Now you have this loop that you can use to do our next technique called the first long double crochet. This again is a double crochet worked in place without having to make a starting chain. This is only possible if you've worked the invisible join as I've just described. Pull this loop up extra long, make it a tiny bit longer than the height of one of your typical long double crochets. Then hold the loop against the hook very firmly with your index finger, and it is important to hold it very tight throughout this stitch. Swing the hook forward and behind this loop, exactly as you would if you were using the loop to create a yarn over, because that's exactly what you're doing. Then insert the hook into the stitch that this working loop is coming out of. So the same stitch into which you did your invisible join. Now at this stage, I go right between the legs of that stitch, which is a single crochet. Pull up a loop and then yarn over and pull through 3 loops on the hook, then yarn over and pull through 2 as usual. And there is our first long double crochet. It looks pretty much like any other long double crochet. It's a lot more convincing than a chain 4 would be that you would otherwise have to make in order to get to the correct height. So this is a great technique for working joins in the round. If you have any trouble with the invisible join or the first long double crochet, I recommend Yay for Yarn's video, which I've linked in the description because that's how I learned those techniques. Whenever the pattern states to work a long double crochet into the single crochet between the 2 legs of that simple crochet, here is what I mean. Just for some extra stability and symmetry, I guess, I like to insert the hook between the legs of the single crochet, which is actually the spot you use when you work waistcoat stitch in regular crochet, if you've ever done that. So just between the 2 lower legs of a single crochet rather than under the top 2 loops that you'd normally work under. And that's just when you're working those long double crochets into a single crochet as indicated in the pattern. Next, working the invisible join to the first long double crochet of the round is a bit tricky the first time you do it. You have to find the 2 loops that form the chain at the top of the stitch, the ones that form a nice continuous line of V's at the top of your double crochets. When you work your invisible join, insert the hook from back to front under those 2 loops. If you have trouble finding them, you could always place a marker on those 2 loops after you finish working the first long double crochet at the beginning of the round, so that you'll easily be able to pick them up and work an invisible join into them at the end of the round. Just in case that was a little confusing, here I am just doing that technique again one more time. So remove the hook and try to identify the top 2 loops of that first long double crochet of the round. Insert the hook under both of them. And just check that you've got a nice line of continuous V's there before you put the loop back on and pull it through. Now switching back to Tunisian crochet after the ripples section is fortunately something that you'll only have to do once in round 12. After the invisible join at the end of round 11, remove the hook and replace it with your double-ended Tunisian hook once again, and you're ready to start the Tunisian section. Here I like to pick up stitches by pulling up loops in the back bumps of all of the stitches of this round, rather than from the front loops as you normally would. So the stitches of this round, round 11, consist of long double crochets, chains, and single crochets, and all of those have a back bump that you can insert the hook into instead of working, for example, under the front 2 loops of a single crochet in the usual way. It does take longer to do it this way, but I find it looks nice because it leaves an unbroken chain of V's marching around your ripples section, which emphasizes the gentle undulation of the fan stitches. The back bumps of the double crochets are easy to identify. They're just the loop or bump right behind the 2 loops you would normally work under. When you get to the chains, the back bumps of these short little chains here are harder to identify, but just look at the chain, identify the 2 loops at the front, which you're trying to leave intact, and then identify the little loop at the back. That was a chain 1. Just make sure when you do the chain 2s that you pick up 2 stitches in the chain. Another tip I have is when you start picking up stitches in the back bumps at the beginning of a long double crochet fan, make sure you don't skip the very first one because it tends to be lower down for some reason. So make sure you pick up 7 stitches in the 7 long double crochet fans. Just don't skip any stitches. So here we are at a chain 2. You want to make sure that you pick up 2 stitches rather than 1. So I just want to zoom in here and show you where the back bumps are that you're supposed to work into. The first one makes a triangle right against the fan that you just finished working into, and the second one is the tightest little back bump. It is a little bit tricky to get the hook into it. So like I said, it does take a little bit longer to work things this way, but here you can see how nice it is to have that unbroken row of V's along the edge of your ripples section. When it becomes difficult to proceed, turn the hook around and reintroduce return pass color B by looping it over the hook, pulling it through the first stitch on the hook, and then as usual yarning over and pulling through 2 stitches on the hook and repeating that until you have only 2 stitches left on the hook. then turn the work back around again and continue with the forward pass, picking up more stitches in those back bumps. One final quick note here is that when you get to the end of this round, I do ask you in the pattern to skip the last long double crochet and don't pick up a loop in the back bump of the last one. This is just so that you have an odd number of stitches, and that's important so that the honeycomb pattern works out. That's all I wanted to show you in this video. I hope the rest of the pattern is pretty straightforward. Thank you for watching.